Hello everyone, welcome once again to Living Off the Slab. This will be video number 2 in our Alaska trip debrief series. And last time I talked about the motorcycle and how it did on the trip. And this time I'm going to talk about me, how I did on the trip, because I got a lot of questions about that as well. If you watched my daily updates, you saw me go through some elated times, some times where I looked really tired because I was, and then again back to some really more jovial and elated times, right? And that's natural. We were on the trip for 35 days, or I was on this trip at least for 35 days, and you go through these ups and downs. It's to be expected, right? Some days you're tired, some days you're not. But being that I'm an old geezer, I'm 58 years old, I know that a lot of you were interested in how my body did on this trip. I actually lost weight on this trip. I know if you looked at my updates and you saw me eating ice cream and drinking beer, it would look like I was just, piling on the pounds during this trip. But the fact is, I actually lost 7 pounds on this trip. I left at 217 pounds, and this morning when I weighed in, I was 210 pounds, right? So I like that. It's pretty good. It sounds like a good diet to me, right? I'm going to go out and ride my motorcycle. 7 pounds every 35 days. Well, a couple of months, I'll be down to fighting weight. Now, to be serious, though, I actually did pretty well, at least I think, on this trip. Right? I did, as I mentioned earlier, I did have some periods when I was pretty tired, and I did have some periods where I actually got sick. I caught a head cold, right? So that didn't help very much. My first 5 days, I was, riding an average of something like 570 miles a day in order to get to Boise within the time frame that I needed to so I could meet with Peter and Stephen and then head up towards Alaska. Well, I knew that was going to be tough, but I planned not to camp during those times. I decided I was just going to hotel it, and that did make a big difference because I had a good night's sleep every night, even though I had a long day the next day. When we got on the bikes and we headed north, that's kind of when I started having a little bit of issues, right? And they weren't with my riding or anything like that. It was my ability to sleep while we were camping, right? Because we were then camping for, 3 or 4 days in a row. We were doing, a long day, and like that first day was just absolutely amazing. I just loved it. But I didn't sleep very well at night, right? And then at night after night after night, that continued to happen. And so I was exhausted when I got up in the morning. You saw the video when we were going to Fairbanks, right? We did the top of the world highway from Dawson, and that was supposed to be a 185-mile day. We're going to stay in Tok, and we decided to ride on to Fairbanks. Well, that turned it into a 400-plus mile day, and then we ended up staying in a hotel that night, which was good because it gave me an extra day off because I had then caught a head cold by that time and I needed a day to recuperate. So having that day off in Fairbanks while Stephen had to run down to Anchorage by himself so that he could do his service appointment. Again, watch the daily videos and you'll understand that more, and I'll go into detail on that in other videos. But that, for me, being able to take a day off the bike in Fairbanks probably really saved me because, again, I had the head cold and I really needed a down day to recuperate. That's another reason that when we went into Anchorage, when the guys wanted to do an extra day of riding, I said, no, I'm just going to stay and I'm going to have a relaxing day because I knew I still needed to recuperate. I needed to take care of myself or I was going to end up having problems later on. So other than coming down with a little bit of a head cold, I really didn't have much other issues. I would get some tension across my shoulders, after a long day, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't enough to stop me from riding the next day or anything. In fact, the next day I felt pretty good and we would go on. And again, it might come back at the end of the day, but again, nothing bad. The only other issue that I might have is with my knees getting a little bit sore from being in that bent position all day long. But again, standing up as much as you possibly could, even on the highway, getting off the bike every hour or so, at least every 100 miles, and also then just stretching the knees out a little bit. That all helped. It never got to the point where it would stop me, but you know, as a little achy every now and then. Again, no big thing. Now, one of the other things that I did that I'm very conscious of when I ride is to take in enough fluids. All right, that's especially important when it's hot, but just any time you want to constantly be drinking. So if you noticed, I had a Camelback on the entire trip, and I was constantly drinking from that. I've got a 50 fluid ounce bag, and I would go through a couple of those a day. Now, I know I probably should actually drink more, but I found if I did that along with having something at lunch or when we stopped, again, that was more than sufficient for me to keep me going, keep my body cool, and just keep things working normally. Speaking of working normally, I'll get a little bit personal with you here, but a lot of times when I travel on trips, and I know a lot of people are this way because you're drinking water you're not used to, eating food you're not used to, or sleeping in places where you're not used to, they get a little bound up. They might get a little bit constipated. Well, I actually had none of that on this trip. I was working and having bowel movements on a regular basis, so that was really great. And I think making sure that I was eating foods that my body was familiar with, and also that I was drinking a lot of fluids really helped in that matter. I also think I ate pretty well on this trip. I mean, yes, I had my ice cream, you saw that. Yes, I drank my beer, but other than that, I tried to make pretty good food choices, right? In the mornings, like, I don't like to eat a lot of bread, a lot of carbs, right? That binds me up when I do that. So I shied away from that in the morning. I would stick with eggs, bacon or sausage, and stay away from the carbs. Then for lunch, I would try to have a salad if there was available. If not, I would get a fish dish or a chicken dish, something like that. There are a couple of times where that wasn't available, and so we might have a burger, and we had a really good burger at one stop. So that was a nice treat. But for the most part, I tried to limit my intake of those carbs. And my downfall was the beer and the ice cream. If I hadn't eaten that, I might be down below 200 pounds. Who knows? All right. Now, to close all this out, let me talk about being tired, because I've had several people make comments that I looked tired in these videos. And yeah, I was tired. Guys, like that last stretch when I was coming home, I had an awesome time, but I rode for 8 days in a row. A couple of the days were 400+ mile days, right? So I was tired at the end of those days. But again, there's nothing wrong with being tired. At least I don't think there's anything wrong with being tired. Doesn't mean you're not enjoying the trip. Doesn't mean you're not healthy, right? I mean, you go out and work in the yard for 4 hours. I'm tired after doing that. Doesn't mean I'm not going to do it the next time, or that I'm not going to get up and go for a ride the next day, if my club is going out, right? It just means that I'm 58 years old, and when you do a lot of work, you get a little bit tired. You learn how to deal with it. It's part of the process when you're out here doing a big trip like this, especially if you're putting on quite a few miles. You're going to somewhere like the Badlands, and you're getting on and off the bike and taking pictures and doing all the things that you do to enjoy something like that, right? Again, that's a little bit of work, and you're gonna get a little bit tired. Nothing wrong with it. Not a reason not to go on the trip. You don't want to get exhausted, but again, doing things like eating right and drinking plenty of water is going to help you from going, over that line from being tired to being exhausted. Okay? And I don't think I ever got to that point, except on those couple of days when I was sick. Then, I needed to take a rest, and I made sure that I did that for myself. Again, so overall, I think that I did pretty well on this trip. I was never to the point where I was uncomfortable, and while it would be nice to have some shorter days and maybe even more time off the bike, overall, everything worked out really well. Okay guys, that's it for this episode. Once again, thanks to everybody who purchases from Twisted Throttle by linking to my website, and in the description of this video I'll have links to the US and the Canadian Twisted Throttle sites. So if you're going to do that, I really appreciate it. Again, it helps us out here. Also, check out the t-shirts on my website, www.livingofftheslab.com, and I'm going to keep the link up to donate to Homes for Our Troops, at least for a little while, because I think it's a great cause. So please check them out at www.hfot.com. And also you can get to that donate link by going to my website, www.livingofftheslab.com, once again. And thanks to everybody for following along and for continuing to subscribe to these videos.